Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, and in this video we're going back to Stranger Things. Season 5 continues with Volume 2, and in this video we're going to be breaking down the ending. We last left the gang in Volume 1 with some big reveals, and Will had tapped into his powers while Jane discovered Callie and Dr. K's lab. Beyond that, Vecna arrived and wiped out the army before returning to the Upside Down. We also had the kidnap of Holly into his seemingly perfect world. The other kids are kidnapped and taken there in this volume, but luckily Holly went in the woods and learned the truth. Coming across Max, she discovered some things about Vecna's past and also what happened since Sadie synced into the Upside Down. Now, you might remember that in Volume 1, Mike explained to his sister what role he felt she was going to play. He discussed the idea of dimension doors, and we see that sort of thing in effect as they journey through different memories.
She can cast a dimension door, which can teleport you to anywhere you visualize.
They reveal a lot about the past and clear up a number of questions. Holly then goes back to the kids and discovers what Vecna's up to. She really takes to her role as an insider and recaps a lot of the plans, along with your boy Derek, MVP. Now, rather than recapping stuff like I normally do, I'm going to talk about the main reveals and assume that you've seen the episodes. Rather than just repeating them step by step, I think we just dive in and discuss everything that's happening. We get lots of things cleared up and also some big dangling threads that will be cleared up in Volume 3. In the end though, speaking of taking on their role, Will is now the sorcerer and episode 5 is titled Shock Jock, playing off all the things with Squawk. He basically embraces being the sorcerer and Will's able to enter Vecna's mind and puppet him about. It flips the script on the villain and basically reverses things from how he manipulated him as a kid. As we learn throughout the episodes, Will was actually Vecna's builder and he's the one that he used to create the tunnels. Vecna saw Will as the weakest person and he's trying to manipulate him now by promising to expose his biggest secret. That is, that he's gay, which in the 80s was obviously way more controversial than what it is today. From this though, he worries his friends and family will disown him and never hit the thumbs up on his video. In the end, Will decides to come out to the group and this actually ends up having the opposite effect to what Vecna intended. This then empowers him to go and face the villain, with this being sort of a last stand against the bad guy. Now it's in the 3 episodes that we learn what Vecna's true plans are. To the kids he tells that Max is under the control of a being like it from A Wrinkle in Time. This gets a reference in the title Escape from Camazotz, which is a location that is named in the book. This it is something that will enslave the children as well, which kind of plays into the whole thing with the Mind Flayer. I'll talk about that more in just a bit, but it's in this that we also discover what the Upside Down itself is. Now initially, Dustin theorizes that things are basically the same as the Death Star 2 in Return of the Jedi. He theorizes that there's a sort of energy shield that protects Vecna's Heart of Darkness, and that if they destroy it, they'll be able to get inside. This isn't true, and he does learn the truth, but unfortunately Dustin's messages don't get through, and it ends up blasting Nancy and Jonathan with energy. During this, we also get the discovery of Dr. Brenner's notes, which reveal the truth about what the Upside Down is. Now, due to it being the mirror of the right side up, many people, including me, have theorized that it's a sort of darker dimension that reflects everything topside. However, that isn't really the case. The Upside Down is instead a wormhole, which acts as a bridge that goes directly to Dimension X. Episode 7 is titled The Bridge, and it nicely builds off how it operates. Dustin does dub it as the Abyss at one point, but to stop things getting confusing, I'm just going to refer to it as Dimension X because that's its original designation. That is, of course, the Mind Flayer's home though, and where the evil truly originates from. This Dimension X was of course discovered by Henry, and we basically get some gaps filled in on what happened. Now, why Vecna couldn't go into the cave was explained in the play, in which we learned more about his origin story. Their equipment was stolen from Brenner's facility and then stored in a cave system in Nevada. Henry ended up stumbling across this, and this is where he came into contact with Dimension X. This is where he encountered the Mind Flayer, which is the darkest being in existence after Ellen DeGeneres. So it's a place that has destroyed him and basically turned him into the man we see today, or the monster. We see this memory playing out in full at one point, and it was so cool getting this cleared up. It clarifies that Brenner had been experimenting on kids to try and recreate how Henry got to Dimension X. Beyond that, trying to recreate things in kids is seen throughout the other factions. Vecna of course kidnapped the 12, but beyond that we have Dr. K as well. Henry's blood was also used to create the initial group of psychic kids, and K wanted to copy that. Turns out that she captured Callie, took her blood, and then injected it into pregnant women to try and create more kids with superpowers. This quote-unquote Popper program ultimately failed though, with her being unable to duplicate the powers. Thus she wants 11 because it's thought she may be able to successfully carry out the experiment. This is because she has part of Vecna's blood inside of her, and thus if she can replicate that, then she can replicate the others. Dr. K also mentions how if they had 11 earlier, then the creatures would now be in Moscow fighting the Russians instead of Americans. This was actually eerily similar to the plot of Welcome to Derry. Well, the proposed army plot in Welcome to Derry, but I won't spoil the actual plan in case you haven't seen it. But yeah, we've had 2 shows this last month involving evil creatures referred to as It, which are poised as a way to fight the Russians. I mean, yeah, 2 isn't that many, but it's still weird it happened twice. However, it highlights that America and Russia are sort of locked in a Cold War arm race in which they're trying to create psychic kids, crack Dimension X, and then use the evil from it to fight the other. We did of course suspect this around Season 3, but this now adds a lot more clarity to why the Russians were so heavily tied into earlier seasons. Now, there's also a lot of connections between the Mind Flayer and Vecna. The order of power was kind of muddied a bit in the play, and though the show kind of played things up as Vecna being the one in charge, the play said the opposite. I'm actually a bit annoyed because when I first did our Season 4 breakdown, I uploaded a video saying that Vecna was the Mind Flayer's puppet. And I got so much shit for it, I second guessed myself, deleted the video, and then uploaded one saying the complete opposite. But I may have been right, and I want a written apology from everyone. I have your names here, and I demand that. The Mind Flayer being behind it though ties more in with the Lovecraftian themes that have been there since the beginning, and it's more tied with a kind of immortal cosmic horror side of everything. Coming from Dimension X, it's basically what made Vecna the way he is. It's the true embodiment of evil and has corrupted almost everything it's had a hold of. This is the ultimate darkness in the universe and the embodiment of the Upside Down that's basically turned everything bad that it's come across. Now during the 3 episodes we see Nancy and Jonathan arguing a fair bit about how they've drifted apart. Well, not arguing, but having an emotional breakdown. But yeah, the pair basically break up and Jonathan decides to unpropose. However, I do think they'll come back together for the finale. Jonathan's been carrying around that ring, and though it's cast away, I feel like it will come back into play at the end of the season. Either way, Nancy destroying the ball washes her and Jonathan with exotic energy. Luckily, they don't die, but basically it makes them go through a near-death experience that makes them realise exactly what they want. However, I do think they will stand up together, and come that finale, something bad will happen to the pair, and Jonathan will be the person to snap her out of it. I'm going to be honest as well, out of all the theories, this is the one I'm least sure on, and yeah, the pair will likely stay apart. However, due to the themes of love, I feel like the love that they have will be what saves the day, and it'll be reflected in lots of different characters. As for the relationships, I think that Nancy isn't going to end up with Steve, no matter how many times I tweet about it. But yeah, I think that will unfortunately not end up happening. Wills, of course, also talked about his feelings towards Mike, which got shut down as well, and yeah, there's the constant characters that aren't getting what they want. I feel like they might even bring someone in at the last minute who will be, like, into Will, and then Mike will go off with 11. Sorry guys, I don't care how many times you tweet about it. However, I think this idea of love will be what overpowers Vecna, and they'll vanquish him through that. I do wonder if in destroying Vecna as well, that all the characters will also lose their powers once and for all. It always takes a toll on the characters, and I think that they'll have to fully come together to do it, which will cost them in the end. I also think that Harper will likely sacrifice himself for 11 at some point, and it'll be building off the back of him losing his daughter. Either way, after travelling into the memories, Max makes it out and finally wakes up. During this, Lucas plays Kate Bush, and I have to say she must be loving it every time a volume comes out. Be like Mariah Carey at Christmas for her bank account. However, the song also alerts the Demogorgons to where they're hiding in the hospital. There's a great scene where they basically hide in lots of different things, and it's sort of like the kitchen scene from Jurassic Park. Obviously, that's not an 80s movie, mate. I know that, so I don't know, maybe it's referencing The Godfather or something, when Michael hides the Don. We also have Lucas not wanting to stop the song, but that's also kind of showing where they're hiding as well, so yeah, really tense moment. They do reveal though that it isn't the song itself that's what strengthens her, but rather the connection she has to it. Now a couple of months ago I got a comment from someone that's really stuck with me. I've referenced it in lots of videos, but it talks about how the quote unquote our song thing that most couple have is actually like a psychological thing. They basically brought up how you and your partner's song isn't necessarily defined by the song itself, because it could just be an arbitrary piece of music, and if other people hear it, they're not going to be like, wow, I can totally understand. What it is, though, is its connection, the memories that you have of it, and what happened during that moment, meeting the person you love, that basically empowers both of you and makes that your song. That's what Max has, and Holly kind of has this in her cleric toy too, and it's about the loving connection, which will be what saves the characters. Now, if you want to know who I think Steve will end up with, well, I think it'll sort of be a sort of mate's love that he has with Dustin that helps empower them both. They've been arguing a shit ton this season, but in the end, they're basically like, love you, bro, let's stop this Vecna cussy having dickhead. Guy's got no dick, man, he ain't got no dick, that sort of thing. They have a big blowout in episode 5, or like episode 1 on volume 2, about how Eddie got himself killed by making a dumb call. Leads to a big fight because deep down, Dustin knows it's true. They do patch it up though, but it's clear Dustin's carrying a lot of PTSD from Eddie's death. So he hasn't really wanted to experience that again, and that's why he's been shutting people out. In the end, though, he decides to accept Steve's friendship, they patch things up, and yeah, I think going forward, that'll be the kind of loving connection that ends up saving the pair. Still though, I will be interested to see if he wears that Hellfire t-shirt in remembrance. I did notice that throughout these episodes he has the radio one, and it does kind of tie into where his loyalties are lying. But in the end, I think maybe he might even get a Steve t-shirt instead. Now, if you enjoy clothes, mate, then why not check out our merch store right below the video. There we have our Vecna inspired shirts and also our Ragline Hellfire Club ones as well. On top of that, we have lots of stuff for Fallout Season 2, and we also have sales going on right now where the more you buy, the more of a discount you get. All goes towards helping videos like this get made, and huge thank you if you picked one up for Christmas next year. Shabow! Either way, where we leave things is with the bridge, setting up our bridge to the finale. It's a big exposition dump that mainly acts as setup and the group creating a plan. We learn Vecna wants to bring Dimension X across the wormhole and then merge it with the right side up. Mirroring Max's awakening, we see as Holly's awaken in Dimension X as well. Ripping the tube from her mouth, I couldn't help but see the similarities to the Matrix. Rather than escaping though, Vecna pulls her back as she tries to make a run from his dark home. This is where we discover he's made his base. It's probably where the showdown's going to be, and yeah, if you've seen it, you'll know it's based on the Dark Crystal, which was a very cool reference and I appreciated that. Jonathan and Nancy managed to catch a glimpse of Holly before Vecna pulls her out, and thus I do think that's where things are going to go down. In the end, they plan to allow Vecna to draw the worlds together, and this will be until the radio towers in the dimension. Steve actually gets to come up with something for once, and he suggests using the tower as a beanstalk so Al can be up there. We have seen the full t-shirt being used, and the race between Jonathan and Steve up there, that is something I think will foreshadow how things play out in the end. Music has of course also been used throughout the seasons to push back the forces of evil, so it makes sense that a radio tower will come into effect here. And it's something we theorized in our earlier videos. Dustin then adds the plan to drop the bomb on the Upside Down, which I'm guessing is how things will end. However, I do wonder if someone's going to be trapped on the other side, someone like 11, and they're basically going to have to be like, I have to destroy the bomb from inside here. You guys go, get back to it. Sort of the end of Armageddon, that sort of thing. Scrap that with 11. I actually think that it's going to be Hopper, and he'll basically be like, you go ahead, it's me and Bruce Willis in Armageddon. Just like Volume 1 ended with Will accepting his abilities though, we end Volume 2 with him accepting his sexuality and that acceptance mirrored in his friends. I think Volume 3 will probably culminate with further acceptance, and I did think before the release of this volume that it might end up with him accepting Mike doesn't love him, but he kind of comes to that realization here. So I am interested to see how / if they mirror that. In the end though, I think he'll go from being a scared lonely lad in the Upside Down to someone who's strengthened by realizing who he truly is. This acceptance of who he is will likely mean he's complete and thus able to take over others, aka Vecna. Vecna chose him because he saw him as the weakest, and thus he was the easiest to turn into a vessel. At its heart, the show has kind of revolved around him, and I don't think it's a coincidence that this all goes down on the anniversary of his disappearance. That of course also ties in with things with Vecna, and this date is crucial to his plans. We close out with the gang then heading into the Upside Down, while Vecna creates an unholy supper with his current 12 disciples. Now I want to give a massive shout out to Alexander Dumas for a comment on our last video pointing out that in episode 1 they had to roll a 20 to kill Vecna. In volume 1, Vecna called Will the first, so we can attribute him as being the number 1. We also have 11, and with Callie coming back, that makes 8. So if you add 1, 11 and 8, you get 20, which goes back to the original 20 that Will had to roll to kill Vecna. So it was kind of always there, hinting at the forces that would need to come together to defeat the bad guys. Now, as for the ending, I do kind of feel like the Duffer Brothers have teased at how we're gonna end things next week. They've said in several interviews that their favourite scene in all of Stranger Things was that opening D&D game that kickstarted the series. So with this in mind, I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say that might be how we end the season. I think the final scene will be the gang back playing their favourite game for the last time before they then leave and go their separate ways. If you cast your mind back to Volume 1, then you might also remember what Mike said to Eleven on the roof of Squawk. He said they'd all go on to have happy lives, which I do think could happen. Now beyond that, it has been theorised that potentially we'll get a flashback of that first game with some timey-wimey wibbly-wobbly stuff.
Like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
There are some theories that the events of the show will be completely reversed and that things like Eddie's death, Will's abduction, that will all be undone because of what their alternate timeline versions pull off. I know some people think that is a bit of a cop-out and that it makes it all pointless, but they had to go through that all in order to go back and avert it. So yeah, personally for me, if that does happen, it doesn't cheapen the ending that much. Though I would prefer that, yeah, they don't reverse time. However, this used to be a staple of stories back in the 80s and 90s, and they'd often have a thing that reminded them of what happened. So it'd be like, oh yeah, kind of, it did happen, didn't it? Even though we're back in time. The original Jumanji, mate, you know that one. Masters of the Universe as well. And Doc, I think, recently does that as well. Now, skipping back a bit, if they did the time travel, I think that this could be done through the clock. This has been a massive thing since Vecna's arrival, and if you cast your mind back to the season 4 announcement, you'll remember it was heavily teased there. This spun off into multiple theories about how season 4 might even center around time travel, especially when we saw Henry's house for the first time. The clock's been given a lot of focus to the point that even old episodes have apparently been updated to include elements of ticking in the score. So the clock thing could pay off massively and be a way that they travel back in time to this game. Now, as for my thoughts on the volume, I thought this was a really strong one, and though I had to get up at 1 AM to do the video, I do think it was worth it, mate. Really enjoyed seeing where things built up off the back of last time, and it left a lot of things in the air that I can't wait to see concluded next week. In Volume 1, I brought up how I felt it was kind of overproduced, and because of that, it almost sort of lost its authenticity. Though I came around on it, quite early on, I did think it was still a ding on the series. But still, I feel that's all settled now, and the production value at points is absolutely insane. Just feels like a massive TV event, and it's likely going to be a long time until we get a series of this scale and hype ever again. Well, depending on how House of the Dragon delivers on the Battle of the Gullet, but yeah, really enjoyed it. Obviously, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the volume below. Please drop a comment and also a like, mate, because I'm working Christmas for you. What do you mean watching TV isn't working? Anyway, thank you for taking the time to check out the video, and I hope to see you next week. If not, then have a great week and also have an awesome new year. If you want to follow us on Instagram as well and keep up to date with what we're doing, then make sure you check us out at Heavy Spoilers. Did you know as well that members of the channel also get early access to videos, and if you click the join button, you get at least one breakdown a week before anyone else. Costs just 99 cents a month. Christmas is about giving now I think about it. Yeah, less than $12 a year, you'll get early access to content. We really try and put our all into it. I know people are like, why just give all your videos away for free? It's like, oh, I make these videos, I've got to pay like loads of people to make these videos. It costs loads of the stuff on the editors. But we appreciate all that. I'm not slagging them off. We appreciate all that. But yeah, that 99 cents that you chip in just makes things a lot more easy and manageable. And it's all your fault if my business crumbles, it's on you. No, I appreciate it. It really does mean a lot to me. Now, if you want something else to watch, we've got a breakdown on screen right now, so definitely head over there right after this. Without the way though, thank you for sticking through this video. I've been your host, Paul. You've been the best. Have a we already had Christmas, but you know what I mean, mate. I hope you had a good one and have a good New Year's. But with that out of the way, take care, peace.